Hey guys, it's Sugar, and I'm here with my husband Jeff.
Hello.
And we are here today just to talk about some things, just randomly, kind of talking really quickly about MAL. Kind of the main focus of this podcast will be about like viewing habits, our viewing habits, not speaking for everyone, and kind of talking about, looking at older anime. And recently we've started going back and looking at that, so we'll talk about that more. But first off, last couple days have been kind of a wish-wash with MAL. Apparently, there's been some stuff with their parent company, and there's kind of been like a bit of a gag order, so to speak, on their employees that are there now. So we aren't really getting information of what's happening. So the site's been down, and now I've lost because all my stuff is there.
Oh, it is a crap show to say the least. It's been. Everybody got that email about, changing out your password or whatnot.
Yeah,
that was
and I thought that
for
was
some
it.
people than other. Then I got a second email about that, but I could still access MAL just fine.
Yeah, me too.
And then probably like 16 hours after that, MAL went down.
Yeah.
So what we could glean from Reddit is simply that the parent company that owns MAL has either not told the people working there exactly what's going on, or legally speaking, the founder of MAL has said, like, legally I can't comment further.
Anything, yeah.
So the only things I can really glean from that, from my understanding kind of legal disputes, first of all, their parent company is based out of Japan, so maybe the laws there are different or whatnot. The only thing I could really glean from that information is potentially MAL is switching ownership in some kind, and so they're, they have to shut down the site and transfer everything from one parent company to the next. There was some rumblings about how, since MAL has started to sell manga on their website, that maybe that's what it is as well, is that they have to go through all the legal requirements allowing them to actually do that worldwide. So they just shut down the site until that happened. That one I don't believe as much, because you could probably just shut down sales and that would be it. And also, I don't think legally that would be something that they shouldn't talk about. If they were just like, we have to jump through a couple of the legal hoops in order to be able to legally sell manga digitally or physically. I'm not exactly sure what their plans were for that in the first place. But to me, I think it's much more likely that it's changing ownership in some capacity.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It's hard to kind of extrapolate exactly what's happening. But long story short, the last, I think 2 days now, we've just been without MAL. And it's kind of unclear. And when we're talking about Reddit, that the actual people involved with Reddit with MAL, we're speaking about it. So this isn't just like user speculation. So it's hard to say what's going to happen or when things will be back up and running. It's kind of irritating, especially for me.
I was going to say, for someone like you, like, for me, if I had to, I could start thinking, and I'd probably hit 90% of the anime that I've watched.
Yeah.
But for you, who's watched a lot more, there's going to be so many things that if you had to transfer everything to another website, because there are other ones that exist, but you'd miss. I would argue probably 15 to 20% of it. You would just miss.
That's my fear, because it's like I always joke that I'm old because I am older, but I'm not old, as some people would say. But I'm so bad at remembering things that are like very like fleeting, if that makes sense. Like, I think the last time I looked at my MAL, I was rounding out at about 400 that I've viewed. And some of those were like really long, extensive things that I've committed a lot of time to, like Naruto. And then there's things that were like short, and like short movies, short OVAs, short, animes in general.
Whenever
and it's like,
White Bear.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a sec. So, it's going to be hard, like, if it really does, for some reason, take too long, or if it, for some reason, which there's no inclination yet that it would, if it totally shuts down, I'd be pretty boned. I'd be spending a couple days trying to transfer what I remember over, because,
Yeah, we'd have to, potentially we could go through some old caches and, like, be able to see
I could go through history and
when,
stuff, but
like, the last time we had access to it, maybe, but right now it's just a mess that we don't really have a timeline on. They haven't said when
It would just take time.
When things are going to pop back up. So,
It's just frustrating.
For the time being, I mean, we just, have a notepad file open and we're updating like, oh, okay, we watched this episode, we did this and that and the other. It's interesting how much we use MAL when we no longer have it. It's like, oh.
Especially since...
Where were we?
It's not like, especially I can't imagine. I find it would be difficult for other anime YouTubers as well, because I know I'm small, but like that was kind of my place where I kept everything nicely organized, because if you know anything about me, I'm slightly anal about that fact of having things organized. And it's kind of the place where I could see like very visually what's coming up, what's now playing, and I could see with posters and with a quick synopsis and everything else, and I had everything where I needed it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so anything I needed was right there. And I know some people don't like MAL and other things, but it was perfect for me because everything is, the way it works in my mind, everything's a list, everything's a chart, everything's, so it's easy for me. It's not having it now makes me like very perturbed. Because it helped me sort that part of my life. But anywho, so we were going to talk today about watching anime, especially lately. I have been watching newer stuff, of course.
Oh yeah, you've kept up.
I've kept up. Jeff, not so much with some of them.
I mean, it's just one of those things where
it's fun.
Worked a lot more this month and whatnot, so I've kept up on the stuff that has been really important to me, obviously.
Yeah.
But,
so we decided to watch some older anime because it's one of those things, everybody's different, but for myself personally, and I know Jeff's like this as well, is the fact that we get very, can I say, our moods change a lot in regards to viewing. So I have to be in the mood to watch something. And it just kind of struck our fancy with things that have been happening this month, where suddenly it's like, I'd like to watch this. Like, I've held off on it for so long.
It's interesting in that the two older ones that we've picked up on, I sort of pushed you to watch the one that we're watching, and then you pushed me to watch the one that I'm watching.
We make a deal. If one of us folds, the other has to fold. Where the other day Jeff came to me and said, I want to watch Ranma 1/2 again.
I said specifically, I want you to watch it, because I think...
No, you said you wanted to watch it again. You're like, and which means I want you to watch it. And I said, okay.
Well, Sugar seemed to be in a mood where a light comedy would have been beneficial to your overall state of mind, let's say.
Yeah. So...
Screw you, Jeff.
No. I was just, without getting into stuff, I was kind of upset. But, yeah.
Life happens.
Life happens. So, yeah. Ranma, he thought it was definitely up my alley, because I guess if you could say over any mood, I really like comedy, I really like thrillers. Thrillers always get me. I really love thrillers. And so he's like, let's watch Ranma 1/2. And I said, okay, because... I've been meaning to watch it forever, just like a million other things.
Yeah.
And right off the bat, it was so funny. I could not stop laughing. It's just, it sets up a joke and pays it off quickly. It's just like joke, Mm-hmm. And it's very much that old mentality of physical comedy, where it's not just like somebody delivering a line and being like, oh, that's funny. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, the characters are funny. The story is funny. Everything's just like nonsensical, and it's like one of those things where you don't need to know why things are the way they are. It's just funny that they are the way they are.
I mean, it's a world in which people will randomly turn, not randomly, but people can turn into different versions of themselves. For those who don't know Ranma on the whole, because I guess we shouldn't assume that everybody knows Ranma. I think the name is well known, but maybe not the content.
Yeah.
It basically features a character, Ranma, who he's a fantastic martial artist. He's trained by his father, and they went off somewhere in China to
do more
train.
Yeah.
And then they end up in this area that they have no idea. Like there's even like a tour guide there who's like, don't fall in the water. This is really bad.
They try to explain stuff, and they just start fighting. And then, of course, it's kind of like a hot spring sort of setting. And, yeah, they fall into the water, and then each of them turns into something different every time they're hit with cold water.
Yeah,
and then they turn
cold
back.
Cold water and hot water.
Yeah, and then hot water turns them back to their normal form. And so you can imagine the kind of hijinks they get into, where it's like as soon as one's mad at the other, they just whip water into each other's face. And of course his dad, who turns into a panda.
A panda who cannot talk.
Exactly. So he
He's
kind of
like,
takes
"Oh,
advantage
no."
of that. If he's losing an argument, just throwing water in his face, and then he can't talk. He was just like, well, obviously you have nothing to say, sort of thing. And so it's just super funny.
Yeah. Ranma changes gender.
And Ranma changes gender, yeah.
And of course, Ranma is like a 16-year-old boy. Or no, 14?
I don't know the age.
In that range. And what makes matters worse is before all of this happened, his dad had already agreed with a family friend of his to get him engaged with one of his daughters.
Like an arranged marriage.
Yeah, an arranged marriage. And so then it kind of goes into the high school setting with Ranma and all the weird hijinks that go on.
Yeah, so basically it goes between the martial arts studio, which is the girl's family's home, Kane, and then there's the school setting and just kind of in between there, so on the streets, kind of walking past houses, things like that. And we haven't finished it, Jeff finished it a long time ago.
I got really far. If I didn't finish it, I know I was into the last season to season and a half.
So
I made it pretty far.
We're getting in a couple episodes here. I think we're about 6 or 7. Since my MAL isn't up, I can't remember. So we've been watching that. Super funny. And I think it has about 161 episodes.
Something like that. 162.
So it'll be a while,
whatever.
but it's one of those things that, especially each person's different viewing, it'll help because I'm one of those people, if I watch something really, really sad or really, really dark, I like something a little lighthearted after to kind of balance me out. This is one of those perfect ones.
It also helps. It's something that, and I think all of your viewers, listeners, whatever, your sugar cubes.
Oh my gosh, Jeff keeps calling you sugar cubes, and I just roll my eyes.
But we'll understand that.
We'll understand.
No, if you're watching something that's subbed, it takes so much of your attention. Half the time when we're watching Ranma, it's probably 12 o'clock at night. It's dubbed. It's not anything that you can just watch it, have a good time. You can, if you just kind of lapse and you're not paying full attention, you can still hear the joke and you're like, aha, I see what's happening there. It's not anything that requires your 100% undivided attention, which is really nice.
I mean, it does deserve your undivided attention, but it's very funny. And usually they set up the joke before it happens, so that's a nice way of getting through it.
And for it being late 80s, early 90s, the dub is actually fairly good. From what we were looking at, I think the dub actresses and actors change a lot.
I think Akane changed a couple times.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I forgot about is, and this would have to be something that maybe I'd have to do a little more research on in general, but it's not aimed for adults or anything like that, but it does feature exposed breasts and stuff like that.
That was how it was in the manga.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of it's an anime before the influence of the
censorship
West really, really hit hard.
Yeah.
So that's just a type of comedy in Japan that they don't feel the need to censor breasts or anything like that. So yes, Ranma in his female form will get kind of felt up by accident or once or twice on purpose because he's like, are you a woman? And boink boink and stuff like that. And I mean, it's played for a laugh, whereas you don't get that usually in North America because we're kind of
now you wouldn't get it at all, basically.
And that's the thing is this takes place before the influence of the West had a big impact on anime.
Well,
arguably.
It's not just the West. It's another long history of censorship. But anyways, we won't get into that.
I just find it kind of refreshing and they're just taking body humor. It's about somebody who changes genders. There's going to be a lot of body humor, and it's just funny. It's not played off to be ooh, this is this is taboo. It's more no, this is kind of how somebody who was 16 and could change between genders would kind of react to their body. And I actually kind of appreciate it a lot, and it's played off for a good laugh.
So as we were saying before, Jeff had to exchange, in a way, for me watching
Equivalent
Ranma.
exchange.
Yeah, basically a Full Metal Alchemist sort of thing.
It's not equivalent exchange though, because what you have me
Yes.
watching is 11 episodes versus 160.
Yeah, that's what I was like. So he'll still owe me.
I mean,
But,
in general, but
Anywho, so I've been trying for a while, and this is finally the leverage I need. I was like,
you make
know,
me sound so bad.
No, I don't make you sound bad. It's just the fact that you aren't into anime as much as I am, so I have to get you interested in a different way in how to watch it. Like, I either have to like do what I did with like Assassination Classroom, where every day I was like, watch it, or be like, this is something you'll really appreciate, and I'm like, trust me, you'll like it. And that's kind of how this was, but he still wasn't pushed into it because it was a kind of a slice of life, and I was like, well, shit, I have to work harder now. And because Jeff doesn't easily buy into them. So, and then this was finally...
They just have to be unique.
This is finally the leverage I needed. So I said, okay, finally watch Usagi Drop. Because I said, I really appreciated it, and I think you would too.
Yeah.
And so he started watching it. What do you think?
It's excellent. Here's the thing that you need to know between Sugar and I. Everything that she's ever told me to watch has been exceptional. It's been very good. I'm one of those people who I need to be in a particular mood, especially, and I'm hoping people will appreciate this, knowing how important some of these things are to you. I don't want to watch it if I'm not in a frame of mind to take it in. Because definitely if I'm tired, if I'm not feeling it, if I'm just kind of feeling like, well, I'm doing this just to, I'm just going to get her to be quiet about it, I'm not going to appreciate it as much as when I'm like, I'm receptive to watching something that's going to be a little different, or something that's maybe a little sad or emotional or whatever the context happens to be. Mm-hmm. I take your suggestions very seriously, so I need to make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind. I feel like you can just jump into an anime in a second and you'll just be like, Usually. It doesn't really matter. It depends. Give it a shot.
Like when I was told about Steins Gate, well, everyone knows I watched the first 3 episodes and then I left it and then I came back to it because it didn't.
We came back because we got the dub. We started with the sub and then it was like,
I watched
whoa.
it with the sub. I watched it with the sub, so I can't say that. But I think that's the problem with Steins Gate is the first 3 episodes, but when you watch it all, it's not a problem, if I can say that without spoiling it. But that was definitely something where I was told, like, it's time travel, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, I have to set a time apart to really make sure I understand. Same with Bakano. When I first got it, like, handed to me, it's like, this is a trip, so buckle up, sort of thing. So I had to, like, sit down and designate time where I felt like I had to do this right, where I was like, okay, I'm fed, I am concentrated, I'm not tired, I don't have a headache, let's do this. So, in a way, I have to be in a mood for certain things. If I have to get through... Yeah. I'm not going to say get through, because this makes it sound like I'm forcing myself. But if I want to watch something that's not heavy-handed, I can usually. It's just very tone-wise, usually. It depends. If I'm already in a bad mood, I won't watch something that puts me in a further bad mood.
Yeah, and I mean, it's... Like, for example, there's an anime that we're supposed to watch that we haven't yet. Red Line or something like that?
Red Line?
There's the one that...
What's it about? I can help you that way.
Like, I thought the title had something to do with, like, racing or something like that. It's drawn in, like, a really unique way, and it's supposed to be excellent. But we're both like, okay, if people who have watched anime their entire lives are like, this is a trip. Like, this takes a lot for you to kind of understand what's going on, everything like that. So neither of us have jumped into it yet. I remember Red Racer or Red Line or something like that. No,
you're right. It's Red Line. I was just in my mind, I was equating it to something we were currently watching. I was like, what?
Yeah, so I know that's both, like, on our list. We're, like, super excited. But it's like, man, I need to... Same thing with Devilman Crybaby, where people are talking about how great that was. And it's like, especially me, I'm like, I have to be in the right frame of mind to watch something like that.
Red Line... For me, why I put it off for so long wasn't even so much a mood thing. It was just the fact that there's a lot of graphics and colors and things that are moving. Like, so if I already have a headache, I don't think I could have watched it. It would have just thrown me over the edge. But
and so with me, it's less about like what might give me a headache or something, and just more like I need to be open and receptive, because sometimes, especially when it comes to something slice of life, if I'm already kind of in a mood that's like, well, this is boring or blah, 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 then, I won't take it well, which, of course, is Usagi Drop. I think I watched 6 episodes. I watched over half the series in the span of like 12 hours or so.
Yeah.
So obviously,
it's one of those
really
things I didn't tell him much about, other than the fact that I was like, it's a bit emotional, and that's all I said. And of course he's like,
it
wow.
gets me the misty eyes.
Yeah, it gets you misty.
Yeah. Those who haven't seen Usagi Drop, it's basically the story, a very kind of Japanese story about.
I was about to say, it's really anybody's story. It's not so much Japanese.
I think, well, I'll explain it first, and then why I think it reflects more of a Japanese culture kind of thing. Where it's a story of a 30-year-old man, his father, just passed away. Mm-hmm. And he goes home. He's, bachelor, he's a, hardworking dude. And he goes home for the funeral and whatnot, and he spots a little kid running around. So he's like, oh, like, is that one of my sisters? And she's like, and his mom's like, nope, that would be one of your father's kids. And he's like, so he thinks for a second. He's like, wait, what? Because like his dad was like 75, and this kid is 6 years old. So
yeah.
So essentially, his father. One of the best jokes in the very first episode is, this little kid's running around and he's talking with his mom, and then he's like, so she's technically your sister and my aunt, right? She's like, don't say that. Don't say it like that, because she's 6 and, his mom's, in her 70s.
Grandfather.
What?
The grandfather, you mean?
It's not his grandfather, it's his father. Because the little girl calls him grandpa.
Yeah. Wait. Are you sure?
Yes.
I'm tired.
Yes, 100%. And so this is where I said it kind of revolves more around this idea of a Japanese culture, because they start discussing like, well, what's going to happen with this child? And he's immediately like, well, why doesn't he just stay with you, Mom? And she's like, what? No, would be...
of his grandfather. Yeah. Daikichi's grandfather. Because that's his daughter. And then that makes... Yeah, that's how it makes her his aunt. His grandfather, not his dad. Yes. Don't worry, long story short, grandfather had illegitimate child, and when he died, basically the family came together to decide what to do with her, and since she was illegitimate, they basically didn't want her, and they were going to put her in a home, or like put her up for adoption, so to speak. And then Daikichi just steps in and says that I'll take her.
Yeah, and so that's where I said it reflects kind of Japanese culture in the sense where, she was staying with his mom, and then she's like, well, why don't you just let her stay with you for a while? And she's like, well, no, that's dishonorable. I'm not going to have my father's illegitimate child stay with me. Like, no. I'm like, wow, that's not, I don't feel like that's a sentiment that would necessarily happen in North America as much.
Depends on the family.
Yeah, definitely. And so it then revolves around
Rin, who's the child, and how how Daikichi's life changes because of her, both for the best and for how it challenges him and how it challenges her, and things that you kind of don't expect as a parent, especially with responsibility and understanding things that change for you in importance. And it's a really good show. Yes. Very emotional, very well done. Jeff hasn't finished, so I'm not going to say anything. Same with all of you. I don't want to spoil anything. But it's very good. It's very heartwarming, very sad. Very, very good.
Yeah, and I think it hits a little harder for anybody who's a parent, obviously. Both Sugar and I are teachers, so that whole, like, getting to know a young person for the first time happens quite often with us. Yeah. So, like, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I had, this grade 2 kid come up to me and, act the same way and all that sort of stuff. So while we're not parents, but we experience a similar sort of a thing. So it's like,
it's that thing where I think at some point where it's like, you even think about, like, you never haven't gone through with it, obviously, but that idea of, like, could I adopt this kid? Because it's like his parents are like the worst of the worst. And it's always that a thought of us, it's like, I want what's better for them. And I've heard lots of teachers say that, where it's just like, there was one kid where it's just like,
yeah,
it was a lot. So
And then I really, really appreciate how, as people might be, asking, well, where's this child's mom and all of this mix? And
Don't say anything.
I'm just saying, it is addressed in a way that feels real. It feels honest. It feels, as a viewer, you kind of get mad, but at the same point, you're like I get it. Yeah. I understand what happened here and why it happened, and so I really appreciate that, because it could have easily. One of the things that I hate in rom-coms, do it a lot, and I'm not talking anime, like Hollywood movies and that sort of thing, is when you've got character relationships that happen and they want you to obviously side with one side over the other.
Yeah.
Is that they make the third party all of a sudden just
super terrible.
Yeah, super terrible. So, for example, in Friends, when Ross was supposed to marry what's her name? Emily. They then totally radically change her character to make her the most unlikable human being on the face of the planet.
Well, also the fact that she got preggers when she wasn't supposed to contractually.
No, there wasn't contractually. She just became pregnant, and they're like, we don't want that in our story.
Well,
and
no,
they had to
I
write
mean,
her
like,
out.
they had intended to, not really pertaining to anime whatsoever, but I was like, they had her contractually that they would have her
seasons.
For longer.
Yeah, and then
but she got preggers, and then they're like, well, get out of here.
Yeah, and so they do a similar thing, like in Frasier. They do a similar thing in lots of other shows where they just are like, this person who you actually grew to really kind of admire and like, we're going to totally radically change them so that when we write them out of the story, it's fine.
But with Frasier, I felt a little different. It wasn't a total turnaround. There was always... They're not going to get into it.
But, I mean, people understand that they could have easily just made the mom character in this just this horrible human being who has no redeeming qualities, and so you're just like, yay, Daikichi is here to save the day, and everything is wonderful. But no, they made it realistic and complex and understandable, and you're like, oh, this is just a bad situation that happened that thankfully Daikichi came around to,
save
to save the day a little bit. Yeah, so it's been really good. I'm over halfway through it. I'm surprised they never did a dub. There's nothing wrong with the sub at all. It's well acted, it's well performed and everything. Mm-hmm. It makes me sad to think how much of a broader audience this would have gotten. Because I remember checking the MAL and it was like above an 8.2.
Yeah.
And I would say...
I think it's 8.55 last time I checked.
And I would say the majority of people who aren't huge anime fans maybe have never even heard of it. Yeah. It's not dubbed. It was never really brought over here as far as I know. It's a sad thing.
Yeah.
I wish there was a market or there was a company that would like go back and like buy the rights and actually, do a dub for something that's old like this. Mm-hmm. Or older anyways. Like, I could honestly see Natsume becoming very successful here if they did a dub.
Jeff knows I have a soft spot for Natsume. And
it's very good. Like, it's not just that you have a soft spot for it. All except for maybe one season, we're all really good.
Yeah, one season.
And that's a different story because that changed. I think it changed hands and it went to a different studio and they didn't know what the hell they were doing at first. But I feel like with the way, like, anime viewing habits, anime in the past 10 years has changed just drastically. And so something like Natsume, I think, could be accessible here. They could do a dub of it and it would do exceptionally well.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just wish it had a wider audience. Like, Natsume has gotten more recognition now, especially with...
finally getting a movie.
Yeah, it's getting a movie, which is... I'm excited about, but yet nervous because apparently it's going to be like different content. So I'm nervous but excited. It's one of those things where it's always hard to tell where it'll be successful. I feel like it could have been successful here. Not to say it's not, because obviously people like me are watching it. But if it was in English, I feel like it would have reached a wider audience because I feel like a lot of people don't want to commit, especially to like 6 seasons in general, but to it being all subbed. A lot of people just won't invest that time because they don't like reading subs. And again, that's one of those things where sometimes I have to be in the mood. If I have a headache, there's not a good chance that I'm going to be watching a sub. If I'm just overloaded with stuff I'm thinking about, I can't, because I can't fully focus, which is what I want to give the full attention. That's why I rag on other people that, like, I watch anime in like 1 billion times speed, and I was like, why bother watching it then? It's like, you're not enjoying it, you don't give a shit. And I've heard people just rag on me about, like, making that criticism, but really, it's like, if you're not enjoying it, why bother watching it? To say that you watched anime, like...
Yeah, it's okay to drop stuff that you don't love.
Yeah.
That's fine. We dropped some stuff that I'm sure it is worthwhile to watch. It's just not for us.
Yeah. Like, there are some things I will watch because, like, I feel like it deserves to be watched. It's kind of like I had no inclination... Like, how can I explain it? When I watched Akira, if I just pulled it out and watched it, I wouldn't have thought anything of it. But since it was so highly regarded and kind of being a big deal for its time and kind of residually being that, I wanted to watch it to understand what was...
So it's a legacy film.
Yeah. And it's something that you kind of... One of those things where you have to watch it at some point. Same with a bunch of other stuff like Evangelion and all that other good stuff. Stuff I still have to watch. But it's one of those things where I feel like it was important at some point for a reason. And so I have to, personally, especially since I like history a lot and the fact that I like anime, I want to understand kind of our big moments in anime. So I understand kind of where our achievements were and where we went from there, you know, why that was such a big deal at the time.
Yeah, I think you've hit all of the legacy films that
I think so. Well, films for sure, I think.
Because, yeah, you hit Akira and Ghost in the Shell right around the same point.
Yeah.
Ghost in the Shell holds up a lot better.
Yeah.
I had you watch Ninja Scroll because you talked about how much you loved
Basilisk.
Basilisk.
God,
and I was like, this sounds a lot like Ninja Scroll. And
yeah, because Jeff had never watched Basilisk and I had never watched Ninja Scroll. And I was explaining it to him because at the time I was like, oh man, it was so cool and so badass and rah, 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 rah. And he's like, that sounds really similar to this. And after I watched it, I was like, Basilisk is a lie.
It's inspired by
it's a lie.
Ninja Scroll.
So I was upset.
Because, yeah,
Excuse me.
Everybody remembers kind of the first anime films they watched that kind of got them into it. I mean, beyond, you know, all the Studio Ghibli stuff, I think we've watched most of it. Especially, like, the fantasy-based ones. Some of the slice of life, I think we've missed out on thus far.
Like, Ghibli, all the older ones, I think I've watched except for Porco Rosso. But I've heard really mixed things on it, so I don't feel like I'm missing out, so to speak.
No,
and then
it's not one of their pinnacle films.
And then some of their newer stuff, just because I've been watching a bunch of other things. But there's lots of, obviously, tons of things I want to watch. But as for need to watch, movie-wise, I think I've hit it all. I'm not going to say it all, because there's tons. But I mean, the big ones.
Yeah.
As for anime, I know there's still a bunch that I need to hit.
Yeah.
But.
And that's probably a good segue into something else that we thought would be really interesting to talk about. And that's, we have a friend who 100% refuses to watch anime as it's airing.
Yeah,
he has 100% said, he's like, is it done yet? We're like, well, no, like, it's not done. He's like, nope.
He absolutely refuses until it's done. I've swayed him on a couple things as an exception, those being Natsume.
That's his thing as well. Sometimes he'll be like, is it done? And we're like, do you mean is the season done or is the series? And he'll be like,
he's like, is
this the start of something that's going to last 200 episodes? Yeah. And most of the time, like, you know, how many anime ever get that? So we're like, well, no. But if he's like, if this is something that's going to last like another 4 seasons, he's like, no, I'm just going to wait. I'll wait 5 years to watch it.
If he likes it, I can sell him on it season by season. But if it's something...
Not episode by episode.
Not episode by episode.
And...
There was one season I got him to do episode by episode, but that's really, really rare.
Yeah, no, he is more of a binge watcher. And there's merits to that. Definitely. It would have annoyed me with Usagi Drop if I had to wait
week by week.
A week.
Yeah.
So I get it. I understand his thing where he values it based on how much he values his time. because just like any person who's an anime fan, regardless of how much we watch, there's still probably like 500 hours of stuff that's supposed to be excellent that we haven't watched yet.
Yeah.
And so his whole thing is he's like, I don't want to put in, 13 hours into this to find out that the ending sucked or that it didn't deliver or something like that.
I guess don't watch Death Note. Just kidding.
He 100% would be the first to say where he's like, I think he would honestly tell people.
He did watch Death Note, though.
I think he would tell people to stop at what the logical stopping point would be.
You know what we're talking about. We won't say it, but you know.
I do remember him saying, though, he wouldn't have wanted it to stop there because the ending has an element that he likes about it.
Yeah.
But still, it takes a noticeable dip in quality.
Noticeable dip.
So like when we were thinking about that, and I was like, I got to watch 6 episodes of Usagi Drop in a row. That's awesome. And so that reminded me of him and about how he won't watch something unless at least the season is done. And I get that. Lots of people are actually like that when I've been talking with other people where they don't want to watch week by week. They're just like, I want to be, especially since, Mike, this is the little argument I made on my little, I got a little piece of paper here.
Yeah.
I took some notes. And so I think the idea is that most anime is not episodic. It is done with a single narrative going throughout. And so being being able to experience that narrative all in a row, all together, while your frame of mind is still the same, I think there is some merit to that. I can understand why people appreciate that better, as opposed to watching it week by week. Cowboy Bebop you can watch week by week because almost a lot of the episodes just don't really connect to one another. But something like Steins Gate, I feel like that was really we benefited from being able to watch it, in chunks together.
It's not necessary to watch it all in one sitting, but it helps the story where you don't forget certain things, especially, can I say, the beginning and end if you put it in a loop. That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, I would argue Baccano is probably better done watching it in a row.
It's very few things I recommend to people where I say you should binge it, because that's one of the ones where my personal rule of thumb, which is just me personally, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I'll just start binging for no reason. Other times I have reasons. And the reasons that I usually abide by are if it's a thriller or if it's intense. Baccano was intense. You had different storylines, at minimum of 4 storylines. And you have reality, alchemy, gangsters, like you have tons of things. And I always say, because I don't ever want it to be disregarded or thought of lightly, I always tell people to, if they can, binge it, because I feel like it deserves a lot of praise. It's amazing dubbed, subbed, the animation's great for its time, the music is amazing, the story is really cool. Like, everything's so bloody cool about it. Like, it's one of my favorites for a reason. It's coolness, the anime. And same with the other day, I finally, as people had noticed, I had watched the first episode of Be the Beginning weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh god, this is going to be one of the ones, it's marked as a thriller, I have to sit down and watch. So that one night, a couple nights ago, I sat down and watched the entire thing. And I feel like it's one of those ones, again, where it benefited you sitting down and watching it, the entire thing, because you're dealing with a thriller. And when you're dealing with a good thriller, which, honestly, Be the Beginning is a pretty good thriller, when you're dealing with a bunch of characters who are decently written or well written, and you have all these things like clues and ideas and theories, and then you're dealing with like several people who are players, so to speak. You have to understand, like, it's like if you watch any good mystery, which I love mysteries if you ever want to appease me. It's one of those things where you want to feel like you had a chance of solving it. And I feel like that is the case with a lot of thrillers, especially Be the Beginning, where it gives you a chance to be like, oh, okay. But at the same token, it's like, here's a twist you didn't expect, which makes me even more excited, because I'm like, if I felt like there was a fair chance of me guessing it and I still couldn't get it, it makes me more excited. Which makes me sound like a weirdo. But it just really thrills me when a story's told really well. And the fact that it's, again, maybe why I like Professor Layton so much, it gives you a chance to try and figure things out and piece things together, and then it still surprise you with things that you didn't see coming but weren't a cheat. They were still very viable things that were brought up, and you're like, why didn't I think of it that way? Because it was taken to like this other level. And by the way, Be the Beginning was rather good, and definitely left a stinger, which is implying that there will be a second season, which I'm excited about now because I want to watch it.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's part of my rule as binging. If I feel like it's intense or a thriller, I usually commit my time. And that's when you can find that I get really angry, is if I commit the time to binge and the thriller sucks balls, I will be so angry. So it's like, I didn't need to put all my time into it. You were just going to fuck me over anyways. I'm not going to bring up all the things that have done that to me, but it's just like, I've been so angry where it's like, I gave you. It's like being in a relationship for too long, and you're like, I gave you my life for those years. I'll never get them back. Where it's like, fuck.
Or if the other thing that'll annoy you is if the solutions just come out of nowhere and make no sense, like Catriel.
Yeah, some of the mysteries in Catriel have really pissed me off, because it's like, it pretends like it's giving you a chance to solve something, and it's like the most absurd resolution to something.
By the way,
don't spoil it.
No, this episode deserves to be spoiled. Because nuts to that, where they essentially rebuild London. No, you don't just build a second London where nobody can see it.
It's like a theory where you're like, oh, this is how it's possible. It's like, haha, joke's on you because it just got rebuilt. I was like,
no,
why
you can't just rebuild London.
It's like the point of a mystery is for it to be built within reality. It's just like, well, if anything can happen, it's just like, fine, a tidal wave. Like, who the hell cares anymore?
Genie came and did it. Like that's how that one felt. I was like, this sucks.
That's the thing. It's like, so we just assume in every mystery where we have unlimited amounts of money, unlimited amount of resources, unlimited amount of people who are willing to partake in your fucking.
Yeah. Not just that. It's basically. No, I don't want to spoil that film. But
I was about to say, don't spoil.
No, you know what? That's not a spoiler because it says exactly.
Okay, hint to me what you're gonna say before you say it.
Jim Carrey, that movie.
Which one?
Where they build a city around him.
Oh, that's old enough. You can spoil it.
Yeah, and so that's essentially for one of the mysteries in Catriel. That's what this guy did. Is he rebuilt London, hired a bunch of people to be actors within there, and not only that, but the lady involved.
They did this for years.
Yeah, and the lady involved knew about it. So it's like, so yeah, we just have to assume with every single mystery that comes around, like
you have unlimited amount of supply.
Just assume this person has $1 trillion and has the time and ability to make anything just happen. It's like, huh.
I was so pissed because I was like, I had a decent theory, and it was just like, no, fuck you trying, screw you.
Yeah.
I was just like, what the hell? Is this supposed to be a kid's show? Kids are supposed to be given a chance.
Did you figure it out? No? Yeah, it's because you're stupid, kid.
And it's just like, whoa. It's just like, feels like somebody's like, you are not smarter than a third grader. Whatever that's a fifth grader. Yeah. It's just like, what the hell? I was like, that's bullshit.
Yeah. As you can tell, we're huge fans of Catriel.
I want Professor Layton back. Herschel.
Where are you, Herschel?
I want Herschel.
Why aren't you there? So yeah, like that's... And as well, like within especially the past 5 years, we've gotten used to Netflix. We've gotten used to the fact that, if we just wait until the season's over, we just watch it all. Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We can now watch the entire 5th season. They just dropped it and I was like, there you go. They do that with anime too. Be the Beginning. Here it is. It's all for you. Devilman Crybaby. Just watch it all. So we've kind of gotten used to that. The thing then, like going into what we were talking about before with the whole watching it episode by episode or watching it kind of binge together, for series that are airing episode by episode, I really feel like you miss out on the culture of that anime if you're not part of watching it at that point.
What do you mean the culture?
That there's a community that comes out of that.
I see what you mean.
And so, for example, there's always going to be a community around the greatest anime that exists. You can have a conversation with people about Full Alchemist Brotherhood,
Yes.
and about Cowboy Bebop, and
Any day
Dragon
of the
Ball.
week.
But for something like Assassination Classroom, imagine what our conversations would have been like if we were watching it as it aired with, our group of, let's say, 50 to 60 people online who are also watching it at the same time. Like, trying to figure out what was going to happen next and talking about which parts were the most, intriguing to us. And like, oh, I can't believe this character did that. So while you kind of lose the whole being able to be in that same mood, you gain this community that evolves around it. Like, talking with people recently about the most recent episode of Clear Card Hen, of Card Captors.
Yeah, you would miss out on that crap.
Well, no, you and I were both really confused about something that happened recently because we had watched the old dub.
Yeah.
And the old dub does not make it clear that certain characters are related. So we were watching this and we were like, wait, what? I don't understand. And so we spent half the episode trying to figure out, like, how is this person related to this person and this, what? And so I just went to some message boards and I was like, what's happening here? And, like, not only were we talking about that, we were talking about, like, oh, this actually deviates a little bit from the manga, and they're doing their own little thing here. And we got into, like, this really cool, like, 50-post discussion just about the most recent episode of Clear Card Hen. And I feel like that, especially if you have, like, a group online, you're on Reddit all the time, I'm on GameFAQs all the time, and we're talking constantly about what we're watching, and, like, being involved in it as it's happening is its own set of joys and sometimes misery. And
I was about to say, if I wouldn't have ever understood that episode, I wouldn't have cared, because I'm so checked out, it's not even funny.
That episode, beyond the first half, it just feels like all of the cool stuff is going to happen in the last 2 episodes.
It's such
all
bullshit.
The stuff I wanted. But, we get involved with that community, and we get to, like, especially, it's really fun to be talking with other people who haven't read the manga already, because they're like, I can't believe it, or something that's original. Chatting with people about Hisone Tumaso-tan has been really fun, because we're just like, this is so awkward and quirky and weird, and we talk about which one we like the most, and like, oh, but isn't that ending, like, super cool and awesome? And so, like, all of that stuff, it doesn't really happen if you're just going to binge watch it after events have happened. I can always
say there's always time to talk about it, because, like, these things come up on Reddit pretty frequently, and those people are always there in the sense of kind of the regulars, like myself and a bunch of other people that are on frequently, and they like talking about it.
It's a different atmosphere, though,
when
it's new to everybody.
Yeah, of course it is. But, I mean, with Card Captors, I really couldn't care.
No, but... Okay, let's go to something that you do care about. What if we hadn't...
What do I care?
What if we hadn't been told how great the Chimera Ant arc was? Like, what if we were experiencing it at the same time as the people who were watching the Japanese?
It's an interesting thing because it kept me holding on. Because I feel like once it hit the... Greed Island, thank you. I, honestly, might have considered dropping it. Because I was like, if this is the direction they're going in, I do not give a fuck anymore. And... like, it was okay. It was one of those things where I kind of would have been wishy-washy about it. But, like, holding out hope that something better was coming than all the other arcs, I was like, well, that's impressive, because I already liked the original few arcs before Greed Island. And I was like, well, if it's going to be even better, obviously I can push through this and then, go forward. But, I know lots of people like Greed Island. I just, not one of them.
It's 100% the weakest arc.
Yeah.
At the very least. But, I mean... it would have been different. That's part of the reason why...
But again, that's not the current atmosphere because it had already aired. So it's dealing with other people who had already watched it. So that's totally different.
No, I'm saying that if we had been watching when the Japanese was airing.
Yeah.
As opposed to now with the
English. I see what you mean.
But that's part of the reason why I broke one of those cardinal sins of anime and I just jumped into the final 5 or 6 episodes of Super. Because I wanted to be part of...
that community.
A part of that community, because they were talking like, oh my god, like blank and the other is happening, and I'm like, I want to be involved in the discussion. So I just jumped in with the last, half a dozen episodes, so I was getting it new at the same time everybody else was. And I think that there's a lot of value in that. I honestly do. I think that
I'm always an
missing...
old soul where I'm like, that information will always be there. And I'm always like, it'll be there.
Well, I mean, you're a history buff, so it's one of those...
It's on the internet, it'll be there.
But that's... I think that there's a lot of value in watching something as it comes out.
Well,
to be
of course,
part
there's
that.
always that excitement. Like, I remember us watching My Hero Academia, and, like, it was already hype, but the fact that we both knew what was going to happen before they did made me even more hype, because I'm like...
Yeah.
It feels like, how can I say it? I'm almost like mother hen, and I have all the chicks. I'm like, oh my god, you can't believe what's going to happen next. Like, you're going to have so much fun. Where I'm just like, I can't wait for them to experience that same thrill. Like, the next, long story short, 2 episodes from now, shit's going to really hit the fan, and I'm super excited. And I'm not going to say why. But trust me, I tent my fingers. You'll be good.
But yeah, like, I feel
it's a sharing moment where it's very much like I've had that with certain anime where it's like people are just as jazzed as you are and you get to share in that excitement, or people are just as disappointed as you are and you feel like you're justified. And of course there's always that one who's like, oh, I really liked it or I really hated it, and it's like, shut up. And it's just like there's always that one person, but I mean, it's always, if you have a point, back it up. Don't just be like, well, it's shit, and be like, why is it shit to you? And it's like, if you have nothing, I won't listen to you.
So
if
then,
you have something.
So, I guess bringing it back to the thing. If you didn't have this channel, right, and you didn't feel like for the channel's purposes, you have to stay kind of up to date with anime. Would you more likely be the kind who would want to binge watch, or would you want to watch it episode by episode?
I don't think anything would have changed. I don't feel like I've heavily changed myself for the channel.
Oh, you watch a lot more currently airing anime.
Well, yeah, obviously. In that extent. I've changed that way, where it's like, I used to usually wait, or else if I caught something episode by episode, hey, I do. But I wasn't like, I obviously every season now push myself to watch what's airing because that's what you guys want to watch and that's what you want to hear about and what you want to hear me think about. I got very Inception there. So yeah, I pushed myself that way. But I mean in the sense of my viewing habits, I've always watched anime, and like I said, it's just the kind of anime that it is. I've either binged or I've, like even a couple nights ago, I wasn't feeling great. And so I thought, well, I don't really, with me not feeling great, I can't do much around the house. So I was like, well, I have a couple hours, I will commit to binging something. And so I just started binging it. Like, that's just how it's always been. It's like, if I only have like a half an hour between supper and whatever, I'll watch an episode and then I'll be content following up with it when I get time. It just depends, really. Like I said before, I've always done both. So I can't say I've changed anything that way. If I'm, all I can say about the channel that's changed, like you said, is season by season, and the fact that there's more of a pressure to catch up and to make sure that, if I'm writing a script, that it's the most accurate that it can be with what the information I'm given. So I think that's the only thing that's changed with the channel, and obviously I'm very much aware exactly what's coming up each season. Whereas before I'm like, oh, there's this thing I want to watch. I know that's coming up this season. And I'd be like, one thing. It's like instead one thing where 17. It's like 17. Yeah. Where it's just like, okay, there's 17 here. I will take the best of a dozen. And so in that sense, I also, which I feel like a lot of anime YouTubers struggle with, is the fact that they can't go back and watch a lot of stuff because that means missing out on time and stuff that you don't really care hearing about.
I mean, I think one of your best performing videos you ever did was on something that was exceptionally old for anime terms.
Well, again, that's something different. It's not just because it was old. It was something that was, we're talking about Perfect Blue. Because I edited it after I got hit with a strike, and then it got put up so you can't see that how many views are actually there. But it was a ton. But that was also something where, again, it was a thriller, and a psychological thriller where people didn't understand what was happening. So I feel like that's why I got a lot of views, is the sense that people wanted to see if their ideas were validated or if there was something they hadn't thought about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that's why I did well, not because it was old. I could pick anything that was old, and people would be like, I don't give a shit about what you think about it. Like right now, I somehow slipped into watching Moby Dick. which is really weird. And
that was
it's like,
because of me and my second jaw.
Randomly, yeah. So I'm watching that, and if I did a review on it, I don't think anyone would care. Like, there'd be a couple people who'd watch it and just be like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. But overall, I wouldn't get, like, thousands of hits on it because nobody would care.
I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think there's lots of movies where people are like, I wonder if it holds up. I wonder, like, if it's good or not. And I mean, lots of times if it's, let's say an hour and a half or something, they might just go and, like, bite the bullet and take that hour and a half. Mm-hmm. They also probably wouldn't mind hearing a review from somebody current looking at it for the first time. That's part of the reason why I really wanted you to watch the live action one first before you watched the animated Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
And then that led to a really interesting conversation.
And that was so funny because I watched the original. I watched the new one first. And then as soon as I was watching the original, the smile wiped right from my face.
Because you came out of the live action. You were like, that wasn't bad. Like, that was okay. It was a fine action movie based on an anime. And then as soon as you watched the anime film, you were like, they didn't do the actual movie.
Yeah, I was so mad. I was like, why would they cut out this? And I was like, there's no reason to cut out this. It was so, like, a small, like, it wouldn't have cost anything else to make this important. Like, I was like, what the fuck? I was so angry.
So, yes, I thought that was really interesting. So I was like, that's neat.
Yeah, I was excited to get into the original, and as soon as I watched it, the smile was gone. I was just like, they ruined it. They ruined it.
To be fair, I still think the live action Ghost in the Shell is a fine action film. Yeah. A fine Hollywood action film. If you don't
realize where it comes from.
It is very much not really based off Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I was like, oh, maybe they did an actual finally good adaptation. And I was sitting there, just slowly, the smile was like, it was just slowly.
It wasn't slow. It was like 20 minutes in, and you were like, this is so superior to what the film
I
did.
say it's slow in the sense where I was like, one thing would go wrong, and I'm like, and it would go to like a straight line look, and then it would be like, oh, and then this, and it was just like to a grimace to like, it's just me unhappy. It's just like,
I am unhappy.
It's just like, what the fuck?
The sugar is gone, it's all salt.
Yeah, it's all salt.
that should be a new set of videos.
That should be,
the sugar is gone.
It's all
salty now.
Yeah.
It's salty now.
If you just heard me get salty, the whole video would be nothing but me swears and yeah. No. You think I swear a lot now? Oh god, if I'm really salty, you would never hear the end of it.
So, I guess
the same way as like I got salty on Attack on Titan. Everyone's like, "How dare you ruin this thing I love?" I'm like, "But it's crap." It's just like I get that you like it, but it's crap.
Oh yeah. Everyone has their thing that they.
But it's a difference between saying that something's your favorite and saying that something's great. If you say something's great, you better fucking.
To be fair, I don't think anybody said that the Ghost in the Shell live action film was great.
I'm talking about Attack on Titan. Like it was the best. It's like the cat's pajamas, and I'm like, I can't say what I said to them.
It was entertaining.
Eloquently swearing.
No, it was. I 100% understand. Like, and same thing with.
It's me like watching cars explode. It's entertaining, and you will watch it because of that factor. But it's not substantial.
This is my again. We're gonna go more into live stuff as opposed to anime. But my exact 100% response to Jurassic World. That is not a good Jurassic anything film.
Well, now it's just become entertainment, especially the new one now. It's just going to be like a horror kind of.
It's a horror monster movie.
Yeah.
It's not a good Jurassic movie. It is a fine entertainment film, but
you can never say it's good. Yeah, it's just running it into the ground.
I think at this point, Jurassic Park was just 1,000 times better than it deserved to be. I guess because all the rest of them were not.
Jurassic Park was amazing. And I watch it all the time. For those of you, it's like, I want a little insight into my life. But it's like every so often I'll pull up Netflix and watch like stuff that I really like. And then also classics like Rear Window. I love that. I love older stuff, especially stuff with Marilyn Monroe. And that's a whole other thing I can talk about. But I really, really love older movies. Especially ones that hold up like Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Holy jeez. That's something else. That's a whole other video and a whole
So
other channel.
That's the thing. To me, I equate Attack on Titan to something like Jurassic World, where like I get the appeal, I get where the entertainment comes in.
I would never lump them in the same category.
They are inherently not great works of fiction. They just aren't.
I wouldn't even put Attack on Titan in that category. You give it more value.
Well, not in my mind. But
Attack on Titan is much worse.
I guess my final word on the whole, as we go back around to the whole binging or watching it episode by episode, I'm exceptionally glad that I was part of the community that was watching Made in Abyss all at the same time.
Yeah, that was an experience.
There is something unique and very exciting about being part of that group that was watching it all at the same time together, where we would all like watch the episode and then we'd come back onto our message boards and just be like, oh my god, I can't believe blank happened. I can't believe this and that and the other. And we would gush about what we think is going to happen next. And, we've got our spoiler tags everywhere and just like, oh my god, oh my god. I really feel like I would have missed out on something had I not been watching that episodically.
And it was a joke between a friend and I, because we watched it at slightly different times, but around the same time. I watched it first. And, if that matters. We were watching it, and it was almost like a text message back and forth. It's like, I'm not crying, you're crying.
Is this D? That's what I'll just say, D? Because I thought D didn't watch it until after it was done.
Yeah, I'm talking about somebody else.
Oh, okay. Because, D got the chance to basically just power through it all. And I would need to ask him if he would have liked it better if he just was watching it episodically with us, let's say.
I think with D, yes, we're using an initial, I feel for him that I feel like he's more emotional. Can I say that? I'm not saying he's a wuss or anything. I'm just saying he's more of an emotional person. And I feel like if he'd been caught up in that tide of emotion where everyone was, I think like he would have taken it much harder than he already did. Caught up in my own words, harder than he already did. Because obviously he was just like, that was intense.
That's quite intense. That's Intensity, the anime.
Yeah, so I feel like every person's different, but yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I like being part of that community enough that I appreciate watching it episode by episode more than the convenience of it being binging.
Well, I was about to say, obviously I can't talk because I've implanted myself in that community, but yeah. I feel like for anybody listening who isn't a huge anime person, or anime, or however you want to call yourself, I don't feel like you miss out on anime because of it. I feel like it's just a part of community that if you want it, it's there. I don't feel like it takes away from any anime or adds to it. I just feel like, I shouldn't say that, it does add sometimes, especially with, for example, My Hero Academia. There was so much hype that it was terrifying to think of the fact that it was getting more seasons. Because it's always that idea of what if it gets worse. But it hasn't. It's just gotten better and better. And obviously because it's taken everything from the manga, which is amazing as well. So it's that one of those fears, though, that you always have, that things can get worse. And that when hype's there, it's hard to live up to hype. With any show, any movie, when there's so much hype, you're like, dear God. Same with Star Wars. When we went to watch it, we're like, dear God, let it be good, because if not, everyone's going to hate on it. It's still got tons of hate.
Are we talking about Ep 8?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it was one of those things where it's just like, for the love of God, if it's not as hype as everyone's making it out to be, you'll never hear the end of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the same thing that applies to anime, where it gets so much hype for certain things, even things that haven't even come out yet, where it's like, if it doesn't meet this hype, like even remotely close, it's going to burn, like with like reviewers, with videos, with everything, and it's just going to be terrible.
That's an interesting idea for another podcast sometime. Anime
burning and crashing.
No. Anime that just didn't meet the hype, that were not necessarily just like in a general sense, but in the sense of people telling us, oh my God, this is amazing, and they tell us that so much that when we watch it and it's, even if it's just good, it's kind of like,
it takes it away. Yeah. Because you're like, well, I was expecting more. Because you build this whole thing up in your mind of what hype is to you.
Hunter x Hunter. 100% Hunter x Hunter. When people talk about how this is the best shonen ever made,
yeah,
and then over half of it is
that's
arguably pedestrian, it's like, oh.
I was about to say, it's like, it's always my fear about going back to classics. Because especially like Akira, I heard nothing but hype. And when I watched it, I felt bad because when I finished it, I was like, it's not like amazing, you know, like.
You also, if you would have read the manga, you'd have been pissed because it doesn't follow the manga 100%.
But I just feel like, and I felt like almost gutted because I was like, I was disappointed that it wasn't what I had made it out in my mind to be, and then I was also disappointed because I'm like, oh, what did they see that I didn't? Because then I'll go and rewatch, which as you know, if you follow the channel, I'm notorious for rewatching. As you can see on MAL, if it comes back up, I'm notorious for rewatching stuff. Either to get...
Bakano, 12 times!
I was supposed to say 1 billion times. Either for enjoyment, to better understand it, for getting that quality out of it. Because I feel like there's lots of anime that are underrated and things that should be noticed that aren't. Long story short, which I've been talking about for months, is like I have a huge script right now about a movie. I won't say which one. But it's pointing out the fact that it's an amazing movie. And a lot of people are like, no, it means nothing. And it's like, that's no. No! You don't get to say that.
Oh, Sugar did the finger wag. No!
No. I'm telling you. No. But it's something... I just totally derailed myself. Long story short, it's I just feel like there's certain things that get too much hype and then things that don't get enough hype. And it's always that thing, a lot of the reason why I rewatch things is because I want to better understand something I really enjoy, yada, yada, yada. Like Ouran Host Club, I'll watch 1,000,000 times because it's so bloody funny to me. And you can't say differently because that's in my mind what I like.
See, and you hyped up Ouran a lot for me. It's good, but when I watched it...
And I know a lot of people won't enjoy it.
The first thing I said, I was like, I feel like this has been done better by other anime.
But I got mad at you for saying that because I'm like, those animes that you mentioned came after it, so I'm like, of course it's better. It's like, it improved on what it already did.
And that's the proof right there that what you're saying is 100% true. Or some of them, they've been they've inspired so many other things afterwards that had, you know, the bigger budget or a better voice cast or whatever to improve upon the same basic idea.
I was about to say, I'm sorry, Christopher Sabat was already in it, so...
Like, well, just because Sabat...
You don't get better than Sabat. Kidding.
Something like Slayers. Slayers is funny. It's
I
quite
love Naga.
good.
That just hits my funny bone.
But I mean, if you watched it now, you'd just probably be like, that was fine.
Yeah, it's fine. You're like,
at the time, it was like, whoa, this is great. But now it's like, well, okay, lots of anime have done kind of the fantasy comedy sort of element. Like, that's just happened. When Slayers first came out, that was, especially for North America, that was like, whoa, this is unique. This
not
is
like Dragon Ball big deal, but it was still like cult classic big deal.
This Slayer, for our listeners out there who are younger and, you know, entered anime when it was pretty big. Mm-hmm. Slayers was kind of one of those anime that you would start watching, and that's like, you would see a VHS of like some of the episodes, and you're like, this hasn't been on television. I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
So like after you'd watch, you know, your Digimon and your Pokemon and your Dragon Ball and Card Captors and all that stuff, this was one of the first ones that you could jump into and be like, this isn't on like normal television. Yeah. What is this? And then you'd watch, you know, your VHS of 3 episodes, and you'd be like, oh man, that was different. It was unique. That was really weird. Like, I loved it. And it was just so different from what was normally on television, because television was dominated by groups who wanted to sanitize anime, and at least, you know, here in Canada.
Yeah, we can't speak for every country, because I've heard tons of stories from you guys about like how it is really in the Philippines and things like in other countries. Where things are very, very different, where like you only got stuff that was very propaganda inspired, you got stuff that was much darker, more violent, you got stuff that was very much vanilla. You know, every place is different. But for Canada, like, we had, you know, Canadian broadcasting, then we also had American broadcasting, and then we also had French broadcasting, which is part of Canada. So really, like, our main sole anime, like the initial ones, was like Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon. Those were like our foundation. And then from there, you got other
You
channels
got
like
the
Fox.
the Fox ones ended up getting Digimon.
They got Digimon.
Did they have Pokemon at the start?
I don't think so. I think
they had
YTV.
Sailor Moon. They had Escaflowne, which was really interesting.
Escaflowne,
that was Fox as well.
And then as it developed, it got things like Beyblade, Moncoley Knights, Power Stone, things like
Samurai
that.
Pizza Cat.
Samurai Pizza Cats. I still haven't watched it, but
I guess technically Hello Kitty.
Hello Kitty wasn't on, like, for us, on, like, a regular basis. It wasn't until much later that they started airing, like, can I call it specials? Not even TV series, but, like, a special. And, like, there were things you could buy, but in Canada, when you saw it on the shelf, you're like, what is it?
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about this in another podcast, where it's like, you just went to a video store, VHS store, and you just grab things out of the bin. You're like, it's cheap, it looks like a cartoon, I can get on board with it. Little did you know you were watching anime, but as you got older, you did. But it's just one of those things where...
And so, like, when it comes to Slayers, it has a special place in my heart, because it was one of those ones that really got me into more the variety that anime had that wasn't just what was being shown to us on, Fox and whatnot.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that now, like, rewatching it, because you watched it for the first time a few years ago, and I was rewatching it, I was like, this is an anime that's swimming in sevens. Like, it's an average anime.
You were talking about the initial stuff, not the sequels. The sequels seemingly got worse.
Well, they a little bit. But yeah, so like the original three seasons were, at the time it was just like, oh my god. Now it's just like, oh, they're fine.
Yeah.
They're fine.
There's something of value there, though, like, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah. What's that? Oh, Naga kills me. She's just so funny. Especially if you watch, like, I think it was in the OVA where she multiplies. Oh my god, it killed me. And I had that as a gift for the longest time because her laughing just kills me. It kills me. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's older. And I think that's one of the things that I appreciate, especially looking at Ranma. And I think one of the YouTubers, and I'm not going to point out who because I can't remember at the moment, was just put out a video about, the appeal of older anime. I think it was Mother's Basement. But anywho, but that was something I've been thinking about even lately, where it's like older anime has this charm to it that makes it really appealing and makes it more nostalgic.
Original Dragon Ball,
Escaflowne, things like that. Like, they had that animation that made you, like, really... It's very nostalgic. Even now watching Moby Dick, where I get the vibes of, like, man, I remember that animation. I remember that kind of transition and stuff like that. And it's just very nostalgic. That's
part of that issue is they're pumping out so much anime, they have to start putting in, like, even something as... What was
it we're watching the other day? Oh, yeah, it was that, Kakariko,
Yeah.
Yeah, or is this like most of it's been like normal animation, then out of nowhere there are people like CG's walking past. I was like, why?
Even a group that is known for how good they do their hand-drawn stuff, like all the clamp stuff, there's still CG in Cardcaptor, in Clear Card Hen. And like sometimes it's very noticeable and very like, oh,
I was like, holy shit. Yeah.
Why are you doing that? So I mean, and I get it. It's and not all of it is as egregious as Piano Forest, but still, there is a charm about it all having to be done by hand, and that's why I mean, at some point we're gonna watch Megalobox because I've heard that does the same sort of thing where almost all of it is hand drawn and it looks
amazing.
It looks like a Cowboy Bebop type show where it just has that kind of style and flair to it and whatnot. And so that's something that we appreciate for sure.
So yeah, it was looking at some older stuff. Even lately we've delved into a couple older things, both by myself and together. I started watching Fairy Tail, which I've been putting on for a long time. I've been getting into that. Shirobako, I've been slowly inching on that one. But I've found that it's needed more of my attention because I found the subs are really fast in a lot of cases. We've both been watching Tiger Mask because Jeff is a huge fan of wrestling. So I was like, okay. And keep it with a grain of salt, because we thought it would be more about wrestling, but it's kind of the idea of wrestling if the storylines were taken literally. So
like how it's neat in the sense that it's like how you watched wrestling when you were 5 years old.
Yeah, it's what you believed to be happening.
Oh my god, that man's gonna die.
Yeah, he's dead. Yeah,
he's dying. Him. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And then Obviously, as adults, we know how the business actually works.
He wasn't actually blinded. He just had like sand thrown in his eyes.
Yeah.
So we watched Tiger Mask together. We're still watching it. I'm almost about 3/4 of the way through. Tiger and Bunny had been putting off for a little bit. I've been recommending it to other people without actually having watched it because I'd heard such good things. It's been pretty good. I'd say about a 7. We started watching Big Wind-Up because Jeff is huge into baseball, especially Blue Jays. Doesn't have to do with Blue Jays, just pointing that out.
Go Blue Jays.
Obviously, we're still continuing with Hunter x Hunter, the English version. I said I started watching Moby Dick. Long story short, we were in, Jeff was at work, and he asked me if I'd ever heard of it, and I was like, no, I haven't. Like, I've heard of the original Moby Dick, but I was like, okay. So I looked it up, and it's basically about, like, this. Sorry. It's about, like, this civilization where Moby Dick comes and, like, attacks, and it's, like, a robot, and it's just funny. It's like a retelling of Moby Dick, but it was way in the future, and everything was made of, like, robots and metal, and it's just kind of funny. There are real people, but it's funny. Anyways, so I've been watching...
Robot whales fighting robots.
I just finished Those Who Hunt Elves, because my friend really wanted me to watch it, and she had the... DVD is sitting at my house for quite a while here. Excuse me. The first season was pretty good. It was really funny. Second season was a bit of a disappointment. So at least it was only 2 seasons. And then we stumbled across another, what was it, a short movie? Was that what we can call it? An informative video? Excuse me. So the English name for it was Whatever, White Bear, and that killed me for a title. I probably laughed for a good 10 minutes before we actually started watching it.
Now, just for context, polar bears are like my favorite animal in the world, and I love bears in general, so
Jeff's like, oh, this one's about bears, we should watch it, and I was like, how many episodes? It's like, oh, it's just one, it's like, I don't know, 40 minutes or something?
No, it was closer to 30.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, it's about, 30 minutes, and I was like, well, whatever, it's just one, let's watch it. And then, of course, the title screen
going
comes up
down
and
the anime rabbit hole.
Yeah, and I was like, whatever, White Bear. And I just started laughing so hard. And it's very much, I believe it was made more for an informative sake, which later, I was going to make a video about it, but I was like, I don't know where it's going to lead me. We'll see. But long story short, it was made into a game later. But it's informative.
It is like a manga that's still, I think, being released.
It's a lot.
I remember seeing a release from 2015.
Story.
Wow.
But it gives the impression, it's informative, yes, but it also gives the impression of one of the bears possibly having mental illness, and they don't handle it very well of how to properly treat that situation. Let's put it that way. It's kind of offensive at points. There is some funny stuff just out of, comedy, slapstick sort of thing, There's one point where one of the I'm even gonna say it. It's half an hour. You can go watch it if you want. It's just so weird and it's so odd.
It is the kind of thing you just don't get with typical Western animation. You just wouldn't get this.
Don't see. Yeah.
30 minutes of this.
Oh, you'd see a nature video. You wouldn't see this nature video.
Nope. And then, the mom constantly makes fun of him.
And slaps him. And
slaps him around.
And then there's a point where, one of the pigs gets a knife.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah, and then the reason that they have this little baby warthog pig thing, the mom is like, I felt bad because we ate its mother.
They murdered its mom, yeah.
Yeah. And then she finds a crown at some point and puts that on. Yeah. I'm like, what is happening the entire time? We just looked at each other and we were like, what is happening here? I
was like, if it made it to its series, I would have just watched it for I don't know where it's going.
Yep. Pig stabs and
the pig stabs.
It's not. They're not anthropomorphic. They're
real. Yeah.
The pig pokes the mama bear in the butt with the knife because it didn't understand what a knife was.
It's really something else. There's always anime out there. You just gotta find the right one.
Whatever, White Bear.
Whatever, White Bear. But maybe we'll leave it at that today. Just wanted to give you kind of an insight of how we're doing things for some of the older anime and talking about just random stuff. Our random mentality.
If you want something like a more serious-ish family drama type thing, definitely watch Usagi Drop. If you want to watch a comedy about a boy who changes into a girl based on the temperature of the water which they are splashed with, and all the hijinks that ensue from that, definitely watch Ranma.
Yeah.
Ranma has aged quite well, actually.
Yeah, a lot of people love Ranma. So anyways, if you have any questions, thoughts, or what we should talk about in a video or podcast, let us know. Again, sorry about the whole script thing. I'm waiting up here. Been, as I said before, doing dental work, and long story short, it never ends. But hopefully soon we'll get that going. So anyways, until next time, thank you, Jeff, for joining me.
Oh, of course. Oh no. I'm always free to be eloquent and amazing on your podcast, Sugar.
Oh, wonderful. And thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.